Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lord, for bringing us together today, and thank you for the wonderful weather we've had. Lord, continue to impart your wisdom upon everybody here, and Lord, continue to make the crops bountiful and the economy really thrive through the season. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Roll call. Councilman Reeves is absent tonight, but we still have a quorum and we'll proceed with business. First up is approval of our agenda. Does any council member have any modifications to the agenda as presented?
Approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Agenda approved. Citizen comments. Hearing no citizen comments, we will move on to our consent agenda. That includes the minutes of our June 16th meeting and appropriations ordinance 1295.
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda approved. All right, moving on to items of business. This is a carryover from last meeting. First up, the review some bids for a new generator at the water tower.
Yes, this is tabled from the last meeting. During the last power outage that we had for an extended period of time, we had to take a portable generator over to the water tower to make sure that our water system was functioning properly. And we would like to purchase a generator that would be hardwired in and ready to go in the case that it's needed. So we did receive 2 bids, and you'll see those included in the packet. One from Pioneer Home Services for $13,433, and the other from Green Services at $16,495. They are both pretty similar generators. The one from Green is 2 kilowatts larger, so that does account for some of the price difference. Both are sufficient to do the job to power the water tower and make sure that our system will operate correctly. And this purchase can be made through the Equipment Reserve Fund that has a cash balance of $179,000.
Council, any questions or comments or discussion on that proposed generator purchase?
'22's fine, like it's more than enough, and we're not pushing the limit to like where we might need something more than that.
No, it's sufficient.
Okay. I'd say if powers that be think that that one's sufficient, we go with that one and save a little bit of money. We don't need the extra kilowatts, the more expensive one.
I agree.
Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the quote from Pioneer Home Services to install a 22 kilowatt generator at the water tower. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. All right, moving on to our next agenda item. Just discussion on an upcoming county tax sale.
Yes, I will first apologize by saying that I have misspoke in my memo. The tax sale is not this Thursday. This Thursday there is a hearing for the properties that are on the list currently, and from then a date will be set for the sale. So even though this still may be a little bit of a premature conversation, I think it's good to go ahead and have it to take the temperature of the council to see what your interest is in any tax sale properties. I've included a map of the current properties in Greensburg that are on the list. That list can change at any time, clear up until the moment of the sale, if any of those property owners pay the back taxes. So this was at the time what is still on the list, and I have those mapped out. I'd just like to have a little council discussion to see if there's any interest in obtaining any of these properties for our land bank. At this time, we do not have any residential properties in our land bank, and we do get asked still from time to time, what is available. Over the last several years, we have moved 18 properties out of our land bank, and those have been sold privately or used in the 2 MIH projects that we've done. I don't have any interest in bidding against any other people that are interested in properties, but at the time of the sale, if there are properties that are not being bid on, if they are good for potential development, I could see those being interest to the city and putting those in our land bank. So just wanted to open that to discussion to see if there's any interest of the governing body in pursuing that when it's time for the tax sale.
Have you looked at any of these properties that you think would be acceptable for development for the land bank?
Yes, I think there's several that could be nice residential properties.
When you say several, what do you?
3 or 4. But there could be other bidders interested in them, depending. Quite a few of these on the list we already mow, and so it wouldn't be a change as far as workload for our staff accepting them in the land bank. It might actually be less after the tax sale because we're mowing most of them.
Financially, what do things, like say somebody's not bidding on something, like what would we be able to,
$20.
okay. Yeah, I'd be in favor of it. I think the land bank has been, an asset for us just to have. We have somebody that comes to town that's interested in building, and we have something that we can offer, and we're already doing the work to maintain it anyway.
I just look at, I mean, it's slow but steady, but how many housing units have been added to Greensburg through properties that at one time have been in the land bank over the last decade, and it's 10, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood, from single-family homes to MIH projects. I think it is a useful development tool that's worked for us, and, you know, if we're talking minimal investment, just a token bid on a property no one else is interested in, if we're mowing it anyway, I see most zero risk and potentially down the road, maybe big reward. So I would say I'm kind of in the same boat as Haley. I think, you know, don't want to bid against anyone. If someone else, a private party, wants to buy it for maybe future development, all theirs. But if it's not getting any interest from anybody and it's a property that is developable, I think, yeah, definitely worth considering. And a conversation probably worth having again as we do get a set date for that tax sale and a final list of properties that will actually be going on it, to maybe just say, yeah, we're interested in 1, 2, and 3, but not 4, something like that.
I agree with it. That's, sure, I think it's a good tool for the city, and as long as we're not competing with private interest. Utilize it.
Is just discussion, or do you want a motion?
I don't think at this point, considering the sale isn't this Thursday like I was thinking it was, so after the hearing on Thursday, I am assuming that the next step will be to publish and then set a date for the sale. So we can put this back on the agenda, if time permits in between, which I'm assuming there will be a publication process, so there will be time for us to have another council meeting between now and then. But I just wanted to kind of get some direction initially to see what your thoughts are.
Sounds like consensus is open to it, so I'd say let's get that final hearing date or final tax sale date, final list of properties, and then maybe talk about this again at a future meeting to maybe narrow it down and decide which ones we're interested in and which ones we're not. Sound reasonable? Okay. Anything further on the potential tax sale? Well, hearing nothing, we will move on to our final item of business, and that time of year again, just time to review our proposed 2026 budget.
Included is a draft of the general fund portion of the budget. The general fund is what drives the mill levy and is funded through ad valorem tax and whether we exceed the revenue neutral rate or not. This is pretty much a holding steady budget, I would say. There's a couple things I'll highlight as we move through it, but most of the things, nothing should come as too much of a surprise, I would hope. Our city's valuation did increase this year from $7,563,000 to $7.8 million, and our revenue neutral rate for this year is 64.529 mils. Our final mill levy for the 2025 budget was 66.716. And that is the number I use to calculate the ad valorem tax estimate for 2026. So on that first page, the very first number at the right, you'll see $521,626 plugged in there using that mill levy rate of 66.716. Moving down there, the other thing I want to point out is interest on idle funds. That revenue, which is the fifth line down there, estimated, I increased that to $30,000. You'll notice that's a pretty significant increase, but I'm looking at investing some of our reserve funds, idle funds, so that we can gain more interest on them. Currently, they are not an interest. They are an interest-bearing account checking, but not in. We could put them in CDs and be gaining more interest. And I've been talking with the bank about that, and that will probably be an agenda item at the next council meeting to talk about that in further detail. But I have put a larger amount in there in hope that we would be receiving more interest on those idle funds that we have. So that's where you'll see the increase there. And then moving on to the second page, you can just see evaluation history and mill levy history over the last 15 years or so. Just to kind of give you some context, we've really been in the 66 mill range for quite some time. And so where this budget sits right now at 66.716 is pretty consistent with where we've been at, and just a hair down as far as mills from this last budget. So moving through the individual funds, we'll start with administration. And really, I would say as an overview for everything, it's pretty much the same. You'll see a little bit of increase in personnel services to account for potential COLA, merit increases, and health insurance benefits. Those we every year see some sort of increase, and so you'll see those line items in personnel services across all the general fund go up a little bit, but still holding pretty steady as far as an increase from the previous year, line over line. Feel free to stop me at any time. I won't get too much in the weeds of each going line by line because I don't want to bore you too much, but if you have a question, please ask. In the administration at the end, I did keep $50,000 in a capital outlay. We've had that over the last several years, just to have some money in there for projects that may arise. The next fund is the airport, keeping it the same at $14,500. We haven't really budgeted a lot out of there yet, but as further development comes, we'll probably have to look at that. Right now, the utilities are pretty minimal because we just have electric out there, and as you've seen in the bills monthly, it's like $20 or less. It's not very much at this time, but we'll probably see an increase when the water well comes online and we're pumping water. So that one's the same. The next page is municipal court. I did cut that back a little bit on contractual services. That is what we pay the city attorney for municipal court legal services. And our 2024 actual was only $25,000. And so I reduced that quite a bit to be more in line with what our actual of 2024 and what I believe 2025 will be. So that's where you see that reduction there overall to $45,000 in the municipal court. Then moving on to police, that's the next one. Again, pretty well holding steady, slight increase in personnel services, but everything else is pretty consistent with this previous budget. Next is fire, again consistent. They are budgeted for 25 volunteer fire departments, firefighters max for the department, and then one for the chief and the treasurer, so 27 volunteer fire department members. You'll see that their personnel services, whatever they do not use in their budget, then rolls over into the fire equipment reserve fund. So we've been budgeting the same $30,000 for some time into that, and then whatever's unused rolls over at the end of the year into their equipment reserve. And you'll remember, I believe it was last year or the year before, we started paying the city utilities at the fire station. So water, electric, and sewer out there. So we do have a line item for that budgeted. Swimming pool, same, holding consistent. 2024 actual for the pool was 70,000, and we've budgeted 78. So in line there with what was budgeted also for 2025. Parks, same, consistent. 2024 actuals was 19,000, and we're on track for similar for this year. So 24,000 budgeted in that department. Same song and dance for the business park as well. This is where we put in money for the Economic Development Fund and the housing incentive that was approved 2-3 years ago now for $4,000 or $5,000 housing incentives. And so that's what that $45,000 line item is. $25,000 transfer into the EcoDevo fund comes out of that. And then the street department, one highlight I would draw your attention to is in the capital outlay fund. I increased that to $50,000 for street repairs, where this year's budget we had 28 in there. In anticipation for a chip seal project next year to help offset that cost of that project. So that's kind of a bird's eye view of the general fund. As far as timeline for the budget process, we are required to submit to the county clerk by July 20th if we are going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. That does fall on a Sunday, and your next council meeting would be on the 21st. So if it is the desire to do that, that requires a resolution that I've included on your desk there to be submitted to the county clerk. Between now and the hearing, we'll finalize the budget, and we could come under this amount if you choose to, but if we do not submit to the county clerk, then the city must hold at that revenue neutral rate if we do not inform the county clerk that we will be exceeding. So if that's the desire, that needs to be approved tonight, so that can be submitted to the county clerk by the 20th. Questions, comments?
Just observation, sounds like it is very much kind of steady ship, business as usual. Expenditures really aren't deviating too much from previous year, and holding the levy pretty steady at the same level it's been at for the last 7 or 8 years. That's what it sounds like at first glance.
I like that mill levy is staying.
Yeah, it's not very much at all.
Well, what do you mean it's not very much? It's not very much, but it's not increasing either.
Right. It's like it's been between 66 and 67 for what, since 2018, 2019?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Well, council, any specific questions on any of the specific departments we've gone over? Any questions on the budget as a whole? Or if you're kind of satisfied with where we're at, the action that would be before council today would be to approve that resolution number 2025-06. again, notifying the county clerk of our intent to exceed R&R and setting those hearing dates.
But we don't know if we're actually gonna need it yet, do we? But our next meeting is fall
Before,
after the
right.
deadline.
So it would be my advice to go ahead,
Whether we use it or not.
correct. In the end, it could end up being lower or higher depending, but we do have to notify if we're going to exceed. Otherwise, we will be stuck at that revenue neutral
We're
rate.
just trying to have everything in place depending on the outcome.
Correct.
I make a motion, to pass resolution 2025-06.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2025-06, notifying the county clerk of the city's intent to exceed revenue neutral rate with a proposed levy of 66.716 mils and setting a hearing date of September 2nd, 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution approved. Any other discussion on our 2026 budget?
I will just note, this will be part of my administrative report, that at the next meeting, you'll have the full budget with the utility funds, tourism, big well, all the rest of the budget. So we'll have the full package to look at next time.
Hearing no further discussion on that item of business, that concludes our items of business, so we'll move on to city staff reports. Stacy.
This year, we are required to complete an additional lead and copper water sampling that happens every 3 years. It's required by KDHE, and samples are required to be collected from 10 locations here in town, and those residents have been selected and asked to participate, and we should have letters in the mail tomorrow to them. We will be having a meeting on the 21st with them and distribute the sample bottles and the instructions, and then they will bring them back the next day, and we will get those sent off to KDHE. One change this year from the list previously, I've mentioned the lead and copper inventory that we had to do and had to submit. This year, we had to change our 10 sampling sites. They have different tiers of levels of potential lead contamination, and we had to select from the lowest tier possible, so basically the ones that potentially could have lead. So basically the 10 we have are houses that survived the tornado. They're older homes that have been here, even if they had new plumbing installed, it goes off construction date, and so they are homes that did survive. So we did have to change all but one on the list that we had done 3 years ago. So I have received the agreements for the Kansas Airport Improvement Grant Program and the Transportation Alternatives Program for preliminary engineering. That's the sidewalks grant. And unless there's any objection by the council or you want to take a look at those, we'll get those signed and executed and returned back, and that gets the ball moving on the next steps of those projects. I am still waiting on the moderate income housing grant agreement from KHRC. I have not seen that yet, so that project is not ready to get rolling yet. The school is doing a project in their north parking lot that you may or may not have noticed, and the superintendent reached out to me several weeks ago about some trees, 7 of them that needed relocated, and they were trying to find a home for them because they hated to see nice mature trees go away. And I agreed for the city to take them, and we found a home for them at the swimming pool park block by the pool. All but one have been moved. There's still one to be moved. And pool staff is watering them every day since we have people there right now during the summer. July is not the best time to be moving trees, but we move them in July. So they'll get watered pretty well every day. Hopefully they will have a real good shot at survival. And then included in the packet was the monthly police department activity report, and I'll let Dennis, if he wants to answer any questions or highlight anything, he can, but that's what I've got.
Council, questions for Stacy or for Dennis on the police report?
Did the school just want to get rid of the trees? did we have to purchase them?
We are paying the removal or transplant fee to have them tree spaded. Arnsman's out of Kinsley is doing that work.
They took our dirt to put in the hole down there, and
Yeah.
they put their tree in our hole.
Yeah. So, we are paying for that and out of the donation fund. It will also help us towards our Tree City USA designation that we have to submit a report for every year of our investment as a city, towards trees, and so that will help. At the end of the year, when I submit that report, we can put those expenses. So, it's gonna be a couple $1,000s, to have them moved, but if we were to purchase those trees,
Oh,
Those mature trees.
that size?
one of them
2,000.
would cost that much.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it really was heartbreaking to think of them just being cut down and dug out.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're at least getting the chance.
And they're ginkgo trees, which if you know anything about ginkgo trees, they get big, they're very, hardwood, straight growing, slow growing. They're Japanese, they're kind of more of a rare, but they do very well here in Kansas.
And thank goodness for the rain to
Yes, yes.
help them survive.
Give them a head start.
I mean, they still need to be watered.
And they are, I've noticed every time I've driven by, someone's out there watering.
Yeah.
Or they've just been there and the ground is visibly wet around them. So
The,
they're doing a good job.
the location chosen was very strategic,
To
close.
the water hydrant or what?
Yes. And people that are there 7 days a week.
Couldn't come close to the pool, so when they splash, they get water then.
Gosh, that chlorinated water would be too good.
It's clean, isn't it?
Any other questions or comments on the city staff reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to governing body comments. Hearing no governing body comments, that does bring us to the end of our agenda tonight. So we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks for your time, everybody.